glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Que l'on ouvre les portes. Let the doors be opened. Statements by members, déclaration de députés. The Honourable Member for Oakville North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Sexual violence continues to be under-recognized within the criminal justice system and has increased significantly during the pandemic. May is a month for us to bring awareness to the realities of sexual violence within our communities and to recognize that certain communities are disproportionately more impacted by sexual violence than others, in particular Indigenous women. I want to thank Savas Halton, who educate our community on the realities of sexual violence while providing direct support and resources to survivors in Halton. Last week, I was pleased to see Bill C-3 receive royal assent to provide education to judges on sexual assault and social contexts. I'd like to give special thanks to Connor Lewis from my office, who has worked on this bill since 2017. Today and every day, I send my support to all survivors as we continue to advocate for the end of sexual violence in all forms. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to recognize the community work of Rosie Burkowski from my riding of Edmonton West. At the start of COVID, Rosie formed the Hamptons and surrounding areas COVID-19 support group with the help of local volunteers that she calls her Angels. Rosie and her Angels support isolated and quarantined seniors and families in need with care packages of food, cleaning supply, pet care, and more. The Angels have since expanded to the entire Edmonton region. Health and home care providers can even refer their clients to the Angels for assistance. To date, Rosie and her Angels have helped over 1,000 families and individuals with Christmas hampers, senior care bags, Easter meals, and Mother's Day dinners, and more. With the help of Angels and local donors like Cobbs West Granville, all care packages are provided 100% from donations. To Rosie and her Angels, thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Nickel Belt.
I am pleased to call attention to Canada's Mining Week. In 2019, the sector created 719,000 direct and indirect jobs throughout the country. 16,000 of those were among Indigenous people. This sector contributed nearly $71 billion to Canada's GDP. The industry is also a world leader for environmental practices, innovation, and clean technology that will ensure our low-carbon future.
We're committed to the mining industry. That's why we invested $365 million to extend the mineral tax exploration tax credit, $36.5 million to advance our battery mineral processing and refinery expertise, and $9.6 million to create a critical battery mineral center of excellence. I ask all honourable members to join me in celebrating National Mining Week and recognize the importance of Canada's mineral industry.
L'honorable député de Thérèse de Blainville.
Monsieur le Président, aujourd'hui 12 mai.
Mr. Speaker, May 12th marks International Nurses Day. And this year, I think I don't need to provide a broad and lengthy explanation of why we owe them our thanks. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois, thank you to these women, for the most part, and to the men who put their health at risk every day of the pandemic to care for those who are ill. Thank you for taking on so many hours of work week after week on the front line against COVID-19. Thank you for saving thousands of lives, and thank you for being there with humanity and with dignity to accompany those who left this world without being able to be surrounded by their loved ones. Quebec has a duty to remember your commitment, your courage, and your great solicitude throughout this historic health crisis. Respect and gratitude.
L'honorable député d'Orléans.
Monsieur le Président, cette semaine...
Mr. Speaker, This is Nursing Week during this International Week for Nurses. I want to thank those in Orleans and throughout Canada for their hard work and their sacrifices, not only this week, but every day of the year. Thank you for continuing to play an essential role in fighting COVID-19. Thank you for always answering the call of your community to preserve our well-being and health. I invite all members of the House to join me in recognizing their work, especially that done over the last year. My message to nurses today is a simple one. You are champions. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Brandon-Souris.
Later this afternoon, we have the final vote on my private member's Bill C-208. The purpose of this bill is straightforward. It'll level the playing field by giving families the exact same tax treatment when they transfer their business or operation to their children as if they transferred it to a stranger. It'll result in more locally owned and operated businesses, the type of businesses that are deeply involved in their communities and provide steady employment for countless individuals. Bill C-208 sends a message of hope to young farmers who want to carry on what their families started. No longer will parents have to be given a false choice of having to choose between a larger retirement package by selling to a stranger or a massive tax bill because they sold to a family member, their own child, or grandchild. I urge all members to vote in favor of C-208 and bring tax fairness to the Income Tax Act for all qualifying small businesses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Brampton North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I want to wish every mother across Canada a happy belated Mother's Day. We know women, and specifically caregivers and mothers, have been hard hit by this pandemic, and we must make sure that Canada's economic recovery pulls women up. Canada's competitive edge depends on women being able to participate fully and equally in the economy, and that's why Budget 2021 prioritizes investing an additional $146 million to expand the women entrepreneurship strategy, a commitment to strengthen gender and racial diversity in corporate governance, and announcing an historic investment in childcare. Our plan will reduce the cost of childcare by $10 a day by 2026 and provide every child the best start in life and every parent an opportunity to excel in the workforce and realize their full potential. I know that investments like these will make a real and lasting difference in the lives of women in Brampton North.
The Honourable Member for Niagara Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I have always understood, respected, and held a great appreciation for those who work behind the scenes at every level of government, but nonetheless put in an endless effort to ensure government and our country functions day in and day out. We recognize that with the contributions of our constituency office staff, our staff in Ottawa, as well as the many talented individuals available to us from the different departments throughout government, this great nation continues to thrive based on the values established by past generations. I proudly take this opportunity to express my heartfelt appreciation to all those who work tirelessly with all of us to ensure the residents, businesses, organizations, and municipalities within our country's borders are well taken care of. Your efforts do not go unnoticed, and neither has your commitment to the well-being of our country during this time of exceptional challenges. Your efforts have strengthened the future health and prosperity of Canada, and you should be forever proud of what your accomplishments during this historic times. To my team, Dan, Ashley, Seema, Gail, Anna, Sarah, Doug, Julie, and Greg, thank you. You continue to make a difference in the lives of many. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Regina Louvain.
Mr. Speaker, it's a sad day for Canada. Through this government's willful ignorance, we are facing yet another crisis in the Western Canadian oil and gas sector with the shutdown of Line 5. Tens of thousands of men and women are concerned about their ability to provide for their families. This government knew back in 2018 that action needed to be taken when Governor Whitmer campaigned and was elected on the promise to shut down Line 5 once and for all. Since then, she sought a legal order to halt the flow of oil and gas through the pipeline by today, May 12th, calling it an unreasonable risk for the Great Lakes. Once again, this Prime Minister shows his refusal to act on any Western Canadian issue that is critical until it reaches the crisis point, if at all. I cannot help but think maybe a negative outcome is what the Liberals truly want when they reimagined Canada. They are hoping the Governor Whitmore will be re-elected in 2022 to see her promise fulfilled. Why? Because that would also help this Prime Minister fulfill his promise to phase out the Western Canadian oil and gas sector.
Member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Working alongside Canadians from day one, our government has been there to support real people and businesses throughout this pandemic, and we will continue to be there until the coronavirus is behind us. We created programs like the Canada Emergency Response Program that financially supported approximately 9 million people, and the wage subsidy program for small businesses, which kept millions of people working, not to mention businesses that would have closed permanently or even gone bankrupt. We provided support in the form of direct payments to seniors and people with disabilities. We increased support for our youth. The government supported nonprofit organizations who in turn supported Canadians. As a national government, we supported other levels of government, whether it was Indigenous provinces, municipalities, or our school boards. As today, we have received over 20 million doses of vaccine. We are getting closer to the new normal because as Canadians, we came together to battle the coronavirus.
L'honorable député de Mégantic-l'Érable.
Il est minuit pour la ligne 5 d'Enbridge et le gouvernement.
It's almost midnight for Line 5, and the government's waited until 1 minute to midnight to act. Slow to do everything, whether it has to do with the pandemic or protecting jobs. That's the trademark for this Prime Minister, who's slow to act for Canadians. He waited until the last minute for Liberals to take this issue seriously. This is going to cost Quebecers dearly, especially thousands of workers in Suncor in Montreal and in Lévis. Line 5 will be closed today by the Governor of Michigan. This provides 2/3 of refined oil for Quebec. Hundreds of technicians, engineers, and other workers could be laid off. Quebec will be deprived of the fuel it needs. It's midnight, and the Liberal government is still unable to guarantee that Enbridge's Line 5 won't be shut down.
Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, today is the day that Governor Whitmer has ordered Enbridge Line 5 to be shut down. Yesterday, chambers of commerce in Canada and the U.S., our government, trade unions, and affected states filed briefs of support in the court case to show support for keeping the line open. Independent studies show that at least 33,000 jobs will be impacted in both countries if Line 5 is shut down, 23,000 of those in my riding of Sarnia-Lambton. $21 billion in economic damage would result. For all the Liberal government's many words to insist they'll do everything diplomatically, legally, and politically to keep Line 5 open, I'm concerned that they waited until the last possible moment to file a brief of support. I call on the Prime Minister to elevate the importance of Line 5 in his discussions with President Biden. Hopefully, a mediated solution will be accepted to support the project that will put the pipeline below the bedrock encased in a tunnel so that we can protect the many people across the states and provinces that are worried about their jobs.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
Well, the Liberals say they want a she recovery, yet they were silent when Pacific Gateway became a federal quarantine hotel and 140 of the long-term workers were terminated. Nearly 2/3 of them are immigrant women. Hilton Metrotown has locked out its workers and terminated 97 workers. The majority of them are racialized women. A feminist government would not tolerate the firing of women to replace them for less. Yet this is happening across the country, from Metro Vancouver to Ottawa. Management wants to roll back these long-term workers' wages to minimum wages, cut their health and pension benefits, and eliminate severance. Unite Here has launched the Unequal Women campaign to bring attention to this disgraceful practice. These women are not disposable. We should not tolerate any hotel firing of women to replace them for less. They should not be allowed to receive government support if they treat their workers in this despicable way. I'm calling on the government to intervene to ensure hotel employers.
Le député de la Prairie.
Monsieur le Président, le 24.
Mr. Speaker, on May 24th, Quebec will celebrate National Patriots Day. This year, we will pay a special tribute to a great patriot with natural leadership skills. A politician whose instincts and rigor no one really saw coming. A man who was told he was crazy to leave a respectable media career to become a political party leader, and who quickly made his mark by spreading his vision of a proud, French-speaking country thriving on clean energy and green innovation in all four corners of its regions. A man who defends Quebec every time he rises to speak, and also does so with pride. I'm talking about my leader, the member for Bellechain-Chambly. On May 24th, he will be honored with the Louis-Joseph Papineau Award by the Rassemblement pour un pays souverain. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois and the entire sovereigntist movement, I want to salute his hard work for the development of our nation and his unwavering commitment for Quebec's sovereignty. Thank you.
Member for Portage-Lisgar.
Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute with gratitude to a highly respected parliamentarian, a loyal conservative, and a dear friend, the remarkable Dianne Finlay. For the past 17 years, Dianne has served her constituents of Haldimand, Norfolk, her party, and her country in this place with honor. Dianne was former Prime Minister Stephen Harper's go-to person on tough files. Whether negotiating with tobacco farmers, reforming EI, military procurement, or G7 and G20 lead during the Great Recession, Dianne got the job done. She served as Minister of Human Resources and Social Development, Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, and Minister of Public Works and Government Services. And not because it was 2015, Mr. Speaker, but because she's among the best of the best. But Dianne is more than an incredibly competent woman. She is kind, thoughtful, and wise, and she has mentored many of us, especially conservative women, over the years. And what you might not know about Dianne is she's also a very talented interior decorator, amazing cook, and although a proud Scotswoman, she loves her Greek food. Dianne, I know one thing you'll miss about Ottawa is your favorite Greek restaurant, Mystico. But I hope you'll also miss many of your colleagues, because we're sure going to miss you. And we know you will continue to be there for our conservative movement and our country for many years to come. I know Doug is smiling on you right now, Dianne, and we all wish you the very best and Godspeed in the next chapter of your life. We love you, Dianne.
The honourable member for Don Valley North.
Mr. Speaker, May is Asian Heritage Month in Canada, a time for all Canadians to come together to recognize the contributions of Asian Canadians in building our great country. From the early pioneer generation who helped connect Canada from coast to coast by rail, to those on the front line fighting COVID-19 today, the Asian Canadian community has contributed enormously to the development and the prosperity of Canada. In my riding of Don Valley North, I'm grateful for the amazing work being done by Asian Canadian organizations dedicated to serve all Canadians, such as Hong Fook, Yi Hong, CEAS, Formosa Evergreen Senior Center, Love Toronto Korean Canadian Community Services, and of course, our frontline heroes putting their lives on the line every day to keep our loved ones safe. This Asian Heritage Month, I call on Canadians to come together to combat anti-Asian racism and discrimination in all forms. Because, like the Prime Minister put it many times in the past, a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. Thank you.
Oral questions. Question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has moved more goalposts than a minor hockey referee when it comes to Canada's vaccine plan. His 1-dose summer, 2-dose fall started with a 0-dose winter, and that's why we're in a disastrous third wave. How much longer will the pandemic be in Canada because of this government's continued vaccine failures?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from November of last year onwards, we talked about 6 million doses in time for the end of March. Well, we actually got to 9.5 million doses. By the end of June, we will have 50 million doses, and by September, we will have enough doses to vaccinate all adults, everyone who wants it across this country completely. We are moving forward, but we encourage everyone to get vaccinated as quickly as possible and drive down cases in your community so we can have a 1-dose summer and a 2-dose fall.
Before we go to the next question, I want to remind all the members joining us from home to make sure that their microphones are muted. We don't want to interrupt with what's going on, and we want to hear all the questions and all the answers. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
What the Prime Minister neglected to say is he wanted the first dose to actually come from China, and his original plan was with CanSino. That fell apart, Mr. Speaker. Now Canadians are waiting on the longest second dose period in the world, and the disastrous communication from this minister, from the Prime Minister, from NACI, from all of them is leading to more vaccine hesitancy. And now the Prime Minister's comments are suggesting let's have lockdowns until fall and Thanksgiving, Mr. Speaker. Enough. How much longer will this pandemic be in Canada because of this Prime Minister's failure to secure vaccines earlier?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, from the very beginning of this pandemic, we worked with partners around the world to secure a large portfolio of potential vaccines coming to Canada, and that is bearing fruit with 4 different approved and safe vaccines in this country and millions of doses arriving every single week. We know that the path towards a better summer is to get that first dose and to drive down cases. We're going to have a better summer. We're going to have an even better fall because I see Canadians stepping up every single day to do the right thing for themselves and their families and get vaccinated.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that's the first time the Prime Minister has acknowledged his attempts to partner with Communist China on a vaccine. We lost months because of his partnering on this portfolio. That's why they were so late. And let's see how we partnered with the developed world, because the only way the Prime Minister made his so-called targets, Mr. Speaker, was stealing from COVAX, stealing from the developed world that Canada usually helps. So I'll ask the Prime Minister, since he admitted it today, why possibly, when they're holding our citizens hostage, stealing our intellectual property, why did the Prime Minister choose a CanSino partnership for his doses for Canadians?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that is simply not true. We signed 7 vaccine contracts with vaccine makers from around the world. Not one of them was from China. We moved forward on delivering vaccine doses as of December. We were among the first countries to start receiving doses, and we are now in the top 3 of the G7 countries in terms of doses for our citizens. We will continue to deliver for Canadians. We will continue to work with the provinces and territories to make sure Canadians are kept safe and we get through this in the right way.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to ask again, because the Prime Minister knows Canadians are in a tough third wave. Provinces are in lockdowns and restrictions because we don't have vaccines like the US and the UK do. There's a new answer just delivered to the Prime Minister, so maybe it contains the details on why he decided, in the midst of a global pandemic that originated in Wuhan, he wanted to partner with a state-owned Chinese enterprise to get us vaccines. That initial decision is why we have the third wave.
You're right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the level of misinformation and disinformation coming from the Conservatives should really concern all Canadians. We reached out as of last spring, Mr. Speaker, to look for any and all sources of vaccines for Canadians. We suspended any engagement with the Chinese CanSino when we saw it wasn't going to deliver, and that's why we have secured deals with Pfizer, with Moderna, with AstraZeneca, with Novavax, and others to deliver vaccines for Canadians. This is what we've moved forward with every single day. We have delivered to keep Canadians safe.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister said a 1-dose summer and a 2-dose fall. It's a nice slogan, but there's still no action, particularly after a partnership with a Chinese company. How much time will the pandemic affect Canada because of the poor management of this government? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, 50,000 doses will arrive in Canada before the end of June, and this means that everyone will be able to get vaccinated with at least 1 dose in Canada. And this will allow us, if
we lower cases of COVID and COVID is under control across the country, well, this will allow us to have barbecues with our friends and do a bit more this summer. We will still have to be careful, but we'll also be able to get vaccinated with a second dose to have a fall. We'll be able to get even more back to normal. So we're going to do this together. I trust Canadians, and we're going to continue to be there for them. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Prime Minister we discussed whether we would have a pandemic election, and he answered no. But I read almost all the comments from all the analysts, and no one believes that. No one. And this may create an opportunity. I have a suggestion. The process to get a consensus, I propose to organize a private meeting with whoever he would like. It could involve all the leaders of the parties. We could get into a room, reach a consensus, and there's no gag order. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we've shown since the beginning of this pandemic that we're here to work with the opposition parties and to deliver for Canadians, and that's exactly what we're doing. Our emphasis and our priority is to continue to deliver vaccines and to continue to provide support to families, workers, and small businesses. We're going to continue to operate in this House. And if the opposition parties are there to work, well, unfortunately, the Bloc voted against twice, in favor of elections a few weeks ago. They don't have confidence in this House, and they're the ones that are interested in an election. We're not interested in one. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Prime Minister should have the wisdom to identify opportunities and to continue to seek consensus. I would like to organize a meeting for a discussion with whoever he would like. It could be the party leaders, if everyone agrees, and we could study the content of legislation and find a consensus and then apply it in a process. And this would avoid a gag order, and we could arrive at a democratic solution. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, for months we have been putting forward this legislation for safe pandemic elections, and we were very happy to be able to study this at committee so that all parties can reflect on this. No one wants a pandemic election, but if ever this House did trigger an election because the opposition parties voted against a government bill, well, elections would have to be conducted safely. In recent months, Mr. Speaker, the opposition parties have voted 14 times against us and in favour of an election, and we're going to be there to deliver for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
To the long-term care home crisis in Ontario and Quebec has revealed additional shocking details. Many of the people that died in long-term care didn't die because of COVID-19. They died because of neglect. They were dehydrated and malnourished. Despite knowing this Prime Minister has yet to take action on bringing in national standards or a commitment to removing profit from long-term care. What will it take for this Prime Minister to take concrete action to save lives in long-term care?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Only the NDP would consider that $3 billion in budget 2021 towards long-term care would be not enough or not action. People living in long-term care deserve safe, quality care and to be treated with dignity. This pandemic has shown us that there are systemic issues affecting long-term care homes across Canada. That's why we invested that $3 billion to create standards for long-term care and make permanent changes. We will continue working with our partners to protect our loved ones in long-term care right across the country.
Well, member for Burnaby South.
Only the Liberals and this Prime Minister would think that their actions are sufficient. People are still dying in long-term care. It is still clear that there is neglect that's ongoing, and it is still clear that there are no national standards in place to protect seniors and residents of long-term care. And certainly, this government has failed to do something as basic as make a commitment to remove profit from long-term care, starting with Revera. So again, I ask, when will this Prime Minister take concrete action to save lives in long-term care?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the situation facing residents in long-term care across the country is absolutely deplorable. We've seen far too many lives lost because of unacceptable situations, and that is why, as a federal government, we have stepped up in working with the provinces and territories for whom it is their jurisdiction to send them supports, to work with them to create standards so that every senior right across the country can be properly protected and retire and live in safety and dignity. That's something that we know, but it's also something we understand is the lead of the provinces.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, to grow trust during a pandemic, the Prime Minister has to tell the Canadians the truth. There was a rather surprising statement. He talked about a one-dose summer. What does that mean? One dose is enough? We need 2 doses. One dose obviously is not enough. It's not a success, it's a failure. What is that Prime Minister going to do to ensure that Canadians will have 2 doses this summer? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, since the beginning of this pandemic, on this side of the House, we are following science and the recommendations, and scientists and doctors have clearly said that when 75% of the population has had a first dose, and when that COVID-19 cases are under control across the country, we'll be able to do a few things more, such as barbecues with friends. There will be improvements in restrictions this summer, and if and only if people take their doses and cases are under control. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. An incomplete vaccination is not a success, it's a failure. It takes 2 doses, but the Prime Minister cannot deliver for this. We remember what did the Premier do first? Prime Minister do first? He had an agreement with China, and nothing panned out. In January and February, there were 10 days with no vaccine deliveries. And that is why we're in this 3rd wave now. We're missing vaccines because the Prime Minister dragged his heels. So what is he going to do to make sure we have enough, so we have 2nd doses this summer? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, since the beginning, we said that everyone would have their full vaccinations, both doses, by September. And with the vaccines we're receiving now, 50,000 doses for our population by the end of June. It means that many people will not only have their first dose, but they'll have a 2nd dose as well. And throughout the summer, people will be able to receive their 2nd dose so that when we're in September, we'll be able to reopen with a 2-dose fall. And that is what our plan is. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. So opening in September, he said that we'd have a 2nd dose by then. In Europe, they are opening up things right now, and our neighbors in the U.S. can attend rallies and sporting events. Mr. Speaker, Canadians want to have access to vaccines, and the Prime Minister said that everyone would be vaccinated by September, but he didn't deliver the goods. What he's going to do in coming weeks and months to make sure that Canadians will have access to 2 doses by this summer. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, for months and months, we've clearly said that all Canadians who want to will be able to be fully vaccinated by the end of September. And based on the figures we're seeing, we'll even be able to see things before the beginning of September. And we know we all have to do our share. And it's sad to see the Conservatives once again misleading Canadians. We're going to have full vaccines by September, and we're going to have everyone to be able to have 1 dose by the end of June, and we're going to get through this together if people get vaccinated.
For Kildone and St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, the question on many Canadians' minds is when will they become fully vaccinated? So by what date will enough vaccine doses arrive to Canada so that every Canadian who wants one will become fully vaccinated?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have been saying since last year that everyone in Canada who wants to will be fully vaccinated by the month of September. It is very possible that we are able to do that even ahead because we are doing so well on vaccine deliveries. We will continue ensuring that people can get vaccinated as quickly as possible because for a 1-dose summer and a 2-dose fall, everyone needs to roll up their sleeves and get their shot.
The Honourable Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, the federal government has presided over the delivery of unclear and changing advice on the AstraZeneca vaccine, and there have been really supply problems with the company that the federal government has not addressed, and now some provinces have stopped the utilization of this vaccine altogether. So for Canadians who have received 1 dose of AstraZeneca, what happens to them now? Should they be getting a 2nd dose of AstraZeneca? Will they be able to, or should they be getting 2 doses of Pfizer or Moderna, or will there be some sort of mix or combination of vaccines? It's been really unclear from this Liberal government what are the steps forward for AstraZeneca. So I would ask for clarity from the Prime Minister on this.
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for absolute clarity, every vaccine approved in Canada by Health Canada is safe and effective. And Canadians who got any dose of any vaccines have been doing their part to reduce cases. It is a good thing moving forward. Scientists and health officials are leaning in carefully on what the next steps are and what the best recommendations are going forward. And we will ensure that they work closely with provincial health officers on delivery of the doses that are needed for Canadians in the coming months.
The Honourable Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Again, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if the Prime Minister is refuting what the provinces of Alberta and Ontario have announced with AstraZeneca, but it's, again, really not clear. So I'm just going to ask him again for clarity concerning the provincial response and what he said and his advisors have told Canadians. Again, will folks who've received the 1st dose of AstraZeneca, like himself, will they be able to receive a 2nd dose of AstraZeneca, or will they be receiving 2 doses of Pfizer or Moderna? Are they going to be getting some combination? Like, it's been very unclear from the get-go on this vaccine. So I'm just going to ask again from the Prime Minister for some clarity on the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't believe that politicians should be delivering health advice, but the best advice that I have heard from my doctor and others is that people who've received 1 dose of AstraZeneca can very well get a 2nd and should very well get a 2nd dose of AstraZeneca. As recommendations change, as people are looking at different courses and options around the world, we will have more data and continue to update people on the recommended path forward. But I can assure everyone that those of you like me, like the Leader of the Opposition and other party leaders who got AstraZeneca, did the right thing and will continue to be well cared for in the ways forward.
The Honourable Member for Shepford. Mr. Speaker, since 2018, allegations of sexual misconduct have been circulating about General Vance. The Defence Minister was aware of the existence and of the nature of these allegations since 2018. Yet, General Vance has faced no investigation or consequences. Not only did he retain his position without any questions for 3 years, he even received a pay raise on top of that. Will the Prime Minister confirm that the Minister of Defence never saw fit to inform him about the existence of allegations against the highest-ranking military officer? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the committee heard many witnesses, including nonpartisan public servants, that said details from the allegations were unknown. The Secretary witnessed said that they had no investigation about the nature of the complaint, and others witnessed saying that they had no details. They conducted the investigation as far as possible, but we have to create a system where people can come forward. The Honourable Member for Shepford. Mr. Speaker, 3 times in 2015, 2019, and 2021, the Prime Minister asked the Minister of Defence to, and I quote, work with the senior leadership of the Canadian Armed Forces to establish a harassment-free workplace. 3 times. Not only did the minister not do that, but he even hid the existence of sexual misconduct allegations against the military's most senior officer. But he did not only fulfill his mandate, he went against it. How can the Prime Minister still have confidence in his Minister of Defence? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, in Budget 2021, we put forth more than $265 million for gender-based violence in the Canadian Armed Forces. This will help survivors, and it allow us to establish new surveillance mechanisms that are external. This is the work we've already done, so we can work on a long-term strategy to eliminate sexual harassment and support victims. We also recently appointed Louise Arbour to conduct an investigation into sexual misconduct, and the General Carignan will also be involved.
Calgary Nose Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to carry on with a line of questions my colleague just asked. The Prime Minister received his first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Will he be getting a second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine, 2 doses of Pfizer or Moderna, or 1 dose of Pfizer or Moderna in the future? Which one will it be?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for Nose Hill for her questions about my well-being. Let me assure her that I talked to my doctor just last week, and he recommended that I indeed get a second dose of AstraZeneca in the coming weeks or months when it becomes available, when my turn comes up in the month of Ontario, in the province of Ontario. That is what I am focused on doing. I know there are questions being asked around the world about the data that involves mixing and matching doses. There are no recommendations around that yet, but I know scientists are leaning in carefully to see if it may be the right option for many people.
Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Is the Prime Minister and the government recommending that people who received the first dose of AstraZeneca get a second dose of AstraZeneca with that comment he just made, or is he advising them to contact their doctor?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister and the government don't make health recommendations. That's not my job. My job is I shared, for example, what the member asked, what advice I personally got from my doctor. I certainly encourage all Canadians to talk to their doctors, who will then be informed by experts and doctors both in their jurisdictions, in their provinces and territories, and by the national guidance from NACI and from Health Canada. That is the best way to move forward. Don't take recommendations from politicians, particularly not Conservatives. Take recommendations from your doctors and the experts.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, the experts are the regulators at Health Canada and NACI, which both report into the government or the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister just stood up in the House and said that he would be getting a second dose of AstraZeneca based on his doctor's advice. Based on the experts in Health Canada and NACI that report into him, would he stand by that advice?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I highlighted that I spoke with my doctor, and he said that he is expecting that in the coming weeks, whenever that comes up, I would get a second dose of AstraZeneca. He will, and others will, of course, be following the updated guidance that I'm sure will continue to evolve from recommendations by experts on what the right path forward is. But Canadians need to be reassured that every step of the way, their health and safety is at the forefront of all recommendations, and every vaccine distributed in Canada is approved by Health Canada because it's safe and effective.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Again, Health Canada and NACI report into the government, the Prime Minister. He would have access to their advice. He has access to a family physician's advice, which many Canadians do not. So I'm wondering if he can tell Canadians who, like him, received the first dose of AstraZeneca 2 things. If they should be waiting for supply to get a second dose of AstraZeneca based on what Health Canada and NACI said, and whether or not AstraZeneca ever plans to deliver a dose of vaccine to Canada, but particularly, should they be waiting to get their first dose of AstraZeneca, as his family physician advised?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, vaccines are rolling out across this country right now. We will have received 50 million doses of vaccines by the end of June. We will continue to make recommendations. We will continue to see Health Canada, NACI, and provincial deciders making recommendations about how and when all Canadians can get vaccinated. But I will take this moment to thank everyone who stepped up and got a first dose of vaccines, congratulate those many who've already received their 2 doses of vaccines, and encourage everyone else to get vaccinated as soon as possible so we can have a much better summer.
The honourable member for Burnaby South.
À Montréal était déjà un grand.
Mr. Speaker, the pandemic has further undermined the situation of housing in Canada. Is the Prime Minister aware of how the cost of rents and housing in general has increased in the last few years? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we know that for many Canadians, housing costs are unaffordable, and that is why we have invested so much in the area in our last budget. And also for several years, for example, with our national housing strategy, where we invested initially $40 billion, which has now gone up to $70 billion. We are fighting homelessness. We have offered the rapid housing strategy, where we are collaborating with municipalities. We are partnering with the provinces and territories, because we know that this is an important crisis for many, many families. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Mr. Speaker, the answer to my question is that rents have seen the biggest annual increase since 2003. And home prices have gone up by up to 23%. This is a terrible situation. Why wouldn't the Prime Minister create a tax on excess profits and use that money to invest in creating immediate, affordable housing? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what we're doing. We have invested billions of dollars throughout the country to immediately build housing. We have signed agreements with the municipalities and community organizations, as well as the provinces and territories, to deliver in the housing sector, and we will continue to do so. With regard to taxes on the wealthy, the first thing we did was to increase taxes on the wealthiest, and we lowered taxes on the middle class. Unfortunately, the NDP voted against that.
In the West. The Honourable Member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, this week is National Nurses Week. Nurses across Canada have made tremendous sacrifices to keep us safe and protected from COVID-19, and we thank them for their dedication, commitment, and compassion. As a proud registered nurse myself, I've seen those sacrifices firsthand while working alongside incredible nurses in long-term care hard hit in the first wave in Brampton, and now on the other side by vaccinating as many Canadians as possible. Will the Prime Minister join me and all Canadians in recognizing the fundamental role of nurses during this pandemic and beyond?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to begin by thanking the member for Brampton West for her unwavering dedication to her community as both an MP and a nurse. Nurses are the backbone of Canada's healthcare system. They've helped us through every aspect of this pandemic, from the emergency room to the ICU, from vaccination clinics to public health units, from long-term care to mental health services. This year has been incredibly challenging for healthcare workers, and we owe nurses deep gratitude for their heroic efforts fighting COVID-19 on the front lines. To all nurses in Canada, thank you. We are grateful for your service.
L'honorable député de Richmond.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Heritage recently published a tweet in which he implied that public opinion is being manipulated by a misinformation campaign, and that all those who have concerns about Bill C-10 and the Liberals' attack on... One moment, please. I'd like to interrupt the Honourable Member. I'd like to ask the Honourable Member to start over, because there seems to be a discussion here in the House, and it's actually a problem for me. I want to hear the whole question. And I would also like to be able to hear the answer. The Honourable Member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Heritage tweeted a comment where he said that public opinion was being manipulated by a misinformation campaign, and that all those who have concerns about Bill C-10 and the Liberals' attack on freedom of expression might be conspiracy theorists. So I have a simple question for the Prime Minister. Does he agree with his Minister of Heritage? Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker,
Canadians expect us to support our artists, creators, our cultural sector. We know how concerning it is to see the web giants have more and more power and not support the Canadian cultural industry. And that is why I was so pleased by the unanimous support of the National Assembly of Quebec for this bill. We know that this bill is not an attack on freedom of expression. On the contrary, it's a way to support our artists, and that's what we want on this side of the House. The Honourable Member for Richmond North Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, we all agree that we need to support the cultural sector. MPs in all parties agree on that. But my question for the Prime Minister was simple. Are people who care about freedom of expression, are they crackpots, conspiracy theorists, people who are trying to spread misinformation? Does the Prime Minister really think that the concerns of Canadians, analysts, experts, professors, and all those who have come out against this bill, does he really think that all of these people are part of a huge conspiracy theory, as his Heritage Minister has seemed to imply? Does he agree with that? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I understand that the member for Richmond North Athabasca is facing a difficult situation because Quebecers and all Canadians remember very clearly the Conservative government's attacks several years ago, their attacks on culture and artists throughout the country. And now we're seeing them once again stand against artists and our content creators. We're watching them once again take the side of the web giants. And that must be sad for my Conservative colleague for Quebec. We will continue to defend freedom of expression and our artists. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, we have a Prime Minister who can't seem to answer a simple question, so I will give him a clear example. There are 2 artists in my riding who have more than 500,000 followers on YouTube, and they share their creations with people throughout the world. In fact, that's how they make a living. With the amended Bill C-10, the CRTC would have the authority to regulate the content of their YouTube, because the minister has said that they might be considered a broadcaster. Does the Prime Minister agree with his minister's vision? Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to reassure my colleague as well as producers of Canadian content, for example, the artist in his riding. I would say that any user of a social network will never be considered a broadcaster under this legislation. Legislation that applies to the web giants will not apply to Canadian users. The amendments to Bill C-10 would greatly limit the powers of the regulators on users of social media and clearly exempts individuals from any form of regulation. So my question, Mr. Speaker, is when will the Conservatives finally support the cultural sector? The Honourable Member for Richmond North Athabasca. The problem, Mr. Speaker, is that the Prime Minister doesn't seem to have read the bill. The content of the bill doesn't match what the Prime Minister is saying, and also what he's saying doesn't match what the Minister's been saying. Now, the artists like those in my riding that I mentioned are everywhere in Canada, and they are not part of any organization. They are fully Canadian. So with these amendments to Bill C-10, the Minister of Heritage is giving himself the authority to regulate influencers, artists, politicians, or any other user who shares content on social media. Can the Prime Minister tell us whether he really agrees with what the Heritage Minister is doing here with C-10? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, that is simply not true. Freedom of expression is explicitly protected by this legislation as well as by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It is non-negotiable, and we will continue to respect that right. The Conservatives are deliberately misleading Canadians. They are holding up the study of this important legislation, and they are standing with web giants against Canadian creators. It's very upsetting. The Honourable Member for Avignon-Lamitis-Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, nearly a third of travelers are getting an exemption from hotel quarantines. Of course, there have to be some exceptions to the quarantines, for example, for essential workers. But nearly a third, that's a lot. And the problem is that Health Canada seems unable to explain which travelers are exempted and why. What will the Prime Minister do to correct the lack of transparency? What will he do to deal with the situation? The Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we closed our borders to almost all travelers more than a year ago. We limited traveling severely, and it's worked. Today, there are less than 5% the amount of trips as there were before the beginning of these measures. And we have taken many further measures, such as tests upon arrival, mandatory quarantine, follow-ups, and all sorts of other measures. We will continue to do everything we can to make sure that Canadians remain safe. The Honourable Member for Avignon and Métis, Madame Matvedia. Mr. Speaker, the tests that travelers have to take at the end of their quarantine are also being mismanaged. The Prime Minister mandated a private company, Switch Health, to manage these tests. That's the only company that the Prime Minister have authorized to administer these tests, but the company is unable to offer services in French, and also it is unable to serve remote regions. So the result is that people are having to spend a month in quarantine while waiting for the company. Switch Health doesn't work for Quebec. When will the Prime Minister replace it? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we recognize that there are issues with a certain company that was delivering these services. We are working with the company, and we are also investigating further solutions because we need all Canadians to be properly served and, of course, served in the official language of their choice. That is essential, and we will continue to work hard to ensure that that is the case.
Member for Lethbridge.
Online content that a Canadian creates in Canada is Canadian content, period. For the Liberal government to dictate which posts are visible and which ones are hidden based on some absurd rating of Canadianness is ridiculous. A TikTok dance, well, that's an 8 out of 10 in Canadianness, bump it up. Facebook post, 4 out of 10, bump it down. A tweet that promotes Liberal values, 10 out of 10, front page. If the Prime Minister genuinely wants to promote Canadian culture, why won't he let Canadians determine what that is?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Bill C-10 aims to level the playing field between creators and web giants. It requires big foreign streamers to provide information on their revenues in Canada, financially contribute to Canadian stories and music, and make it easier for individuals to discover our culture. The bill explicitly says that obligations apply to web giants only, not Canadian users. Web giants have gone unrelated for far too long. Our government has chosen to act.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Experts are saying otherwise. Canadian culture should be determined by the Canadian people, not the government. To censor online content based on a narrow definition of Canadianness is an attack on the artists that this Prime Minister claims he supports. But don't take my word for it. Shirley Joseph is an advocate for Black content creators. She says the definition of, quote, Canadian content discriminates against Black creators, and Bill C-10 will actually prevent them from being able to leverage their voice. Interesting. Doesn't sound like an attack on web giants. Will the Prime Minister finally give up on this unwanted internet czar campaign and back off?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, protecting Canadian content, supporting Canadian artists is a long-standing way that we do things in Canada and have done things extraordinarily successfully. The requirements of broadcasters, whether it's television stations or radio stations, to promote Canadian artists is one of the things that has made the Canadian music scene, the Canadian teleproduction scene extremely successful in a world of increased encroachment by Hollywood. This is something that we need to extend to the web as things go increasingly digital, and these measures that apply to web giants and not Canadians is the right way.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, 88,000 travelers managed to skip out on the government's border measures. That's like a city the size of Peterborough. The government doesn't know if they quarantined at home or if they all received ministerial exemptions. Every variant of concern, Mr. Speaker, spreading in this community, the dangerous ones, all of them originated from outside of Canada. How much longer will this pandemic be in Canada because of this government's continued failure to manage our border.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've all heard the exact same concerns from the Conservative Premier of Ontario, who the Leader of the Opposition is continuing to support and enhance in his messages. The reality is, I offered to the Premier of Ontario last week to tell me which passengers, which travellers he wanted to limit into Ontario. Is it international students? Is it temporary foreign workers? Is it essential workers? Is it compassionate categories? These are all categories we established with the Government of Ontario. They just need to get back to us to tell us which categories they want to shut down. We're still waiting, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Halifax West.
Monsieur le Président, nous avons entendu.
Mr. Speaker, all year we have heard how severely the air sector has been affected. Workers, regional routes, and airports throughout the country have been severely affected by the pandemic. Can the Prime Minister inform this House about the measures taken by the government to support airports like Halifax Airport to ensure that the airline sector can recover from the pandemic? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for Halifax West for this important question and his hard work. We know that workers in the aviation sector have been carrying out essential work during this pandemic. We are very proud to announce 2 new funding programs. Nearly $490 million for the Airport Critical Infrastructure Program and nearly $65 million for the Airport Relief Fund. These funds will help airports to undertake infrastructure projects and maintain employment and operations.
Millions of hours of Canadian content is uploaded onto the internet by Canadians every single month. But now the Prime Minister wants to pass a bill that would allow his Canadiana czar to determine what is Canadian enough. That czar will be able to manipulate algorithms to decide what people see when they open up their various online platforms. So this czar is going to have so much power. Can the Prime Minister tell us who, in fact, this czar will be?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, Conservatives demonstrate that they have no understanding and no appreciation of the Canadian cultural industry. The thousands upon thousands of jobs created by Canadian productions, the work done by Canadian YouTubers, the work done by Canadian musical artists and producers. These are the things that we are supporting in determining, in forcing web giants to recognize and support Canadian content. Once again, Conservatives don't line themselves up with content creators or Canadians. They pick fights and look for conspiracy theories.
That's right. Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, I guess he'll have to censor this debate out of the record if he says it is misinformation, Mr. Speaker. It comes down to who decides. Who decides what Canadian content will be promoted? Even the Toronto Star ran this headline today. Canadian content creators feel left in the dark as Ottawa hits pause on proposed new internet law. They are worried that the regulation this government is bringing in will disadvantage entrepreneurial artists who are uploading their content online. So will the Prime Minister tell them who this information czar will be?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Bill C-10 aims to level the playing field between creators and web giants. It requires big foreign streamers to provide information on the revenues in Canada, financially contribute to Canadian stories and music, and make it easier for individuals to discover our culture. The bill explicitly says that obligations apply to web giants only, not Canadian users. Web giants have gone unregulated for far too long, and our government has chosen to act.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, the Prime Minister got off message and got back onto his script. I congratulate him for that. Now he wants all Canadians to get on his script by giving an information czar over at the CRTC the power to decide what Canadians see and what they don't see. And that the problem here, Mr. Speaker, is that who decides? We believe Canadians as consumers and producers of content should be allowed to decide for themselves, He believes that a government czar should decide for them. Even his minister let the cat out of the bag on that on television over the weekend. So will the Prime Minister give us the name of this information czar?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for decades, Canadian content has been protected and promoted by rules that the CRTC enforces around radio stations playing more Canadian music so as to support the Canadian music industry, of TV stations being able to, needing to put forward Canadian content to create opportunities for Canadian actors, screenwriters, directors, and crew to develop Canadian content. With the move towards a digital world, we need to make sure that streamers such as Netflix and YouTube are subject to the same requirements to support Canadian content creation. That's exactly what we're moving forward with.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Centre.
Mr. Speaker, public transit is at the heart of a clean, inclusive recovery that starts our economy and creates good jobs. From construction workers to transit drivers to workers on assembly lines to the small business owners supporting these projects. Tens of thousands of jobs are created when we invest in public transit. Investing in public transit supports Canadians through the pandemic, positions Canada for a strong recovery, and transforms our society for a cleaner and a better future. Can the Prime Minister please update us on our government's historic commitment to public transit in the GTA?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for Scarborough Centre for her important question. People want to live and work near good public transit. It takes cars off the road, helps drive Canada to net zero emissions by 2050, and allows commuters to spend more time with their loved ones. Yesterday, we announced a historic investment for 4 shovel-ready public transit projects in the GTA, with the federal government contributing up to $10.4 billion. Our government knows that expanding public transit is essential to the future of the GTA, and we're stepping up to the plate.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Violence in East Jerusalem is deeply disturbing. Demolitions, forcefully removing Palestinians from their homes, and blocking access to important gathering spots are all violations of human rights and international laws. Instead of taking action to stop or to deal with the long-standing illegal occupations, this Prime Minister is effectively supporting the status quo and going as far as to sell weapons to Israel. By arming one side of the conflict, it is undermining the peace process and it is supporting the illegal occupation. So will the Prime Minister commit to stopping the sale of arms to Israel while they are violating international human rights?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are following the situation with grave concern. We call on all parties to end the violence, de-escalate tensions, protect civilians, and uphold international law. Rocket attacks against Israel are completely unacceptable, and Canada supports Israel's right to assure its own security. Violence at Al-Aqsa is also unacceptable. Places of worship are for people to gather peacefully and should never be sites of violence. We're also gravely concerned by continued expansion of settlements and evictions. Canada supports a two-state solution, and we urge all parties to renew their commitment to peace and security.
That's all the time we have for question period today. We have a point of order. L'honorable député de Louis Saint-Laurent.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During question period, the fourth question of the member for Richmond Arthabaska, the Prime Minister said the Conservatives are deliberately misleading Canadians. I don't agree with this statement. I'm sure that the Prime Minister recognizes that he cannot say this in the chamber. I invite him to do what he should do, which is to rise and withdraw what he said. One moment, please.
For Kingston and the Islands is rising on a point of order.
It'll be up to you to decide whether or not there is an actual breach of the rules. If that's what the member's suggesting, he should actually suggest that. He's not. Other than that, this is not a point of order, Mr. Speaker. It's actually an item of debate.
L'honorable député de Louis Saint-Laurent.
Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. I just quote the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister said that the Conservatives deliberately misinformed the Canadians. Les conservateurs induisent...
The Conservatives are deliberately misleading Canadians. That is exactly what he said. We cannot, in this chamber, deliberately mislead or claim that colleagues are deliberately misleading. It's written in the rules, and so I invite the member to do what he should, which is to rise and withdraw what he said, which is what the Minister of Canadian Heritage did just a few days ago, the Honourable Member for Kingston and the Islands.
Mr. Speaker, to hear the Conservatives accusing this side of the House of lying and misleading, I've been sitting here every day since January, and I hear it every day during question period. This is clearly not a point of order.
I see the Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent getting up again. I will have to go back and check. I'll just cut it right here. I'll go back and take a look at the transcripts and come back to the House with a ruling, if that's okay. It's turning into a debate, and that's not the whole idea. A point of order is looking at the rules and making sure that the rules were followed. I think we're done. It being 3:12, I'm just going to call order for a moment. I'm sure everybody wants to hear what I'm about to say, because if you keep having that conversation, you'll miss this important information. It being 3:12, pursuant to an order made on Monday, January 25th, 2021, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion at third reading stage of Bill C-208 under private members' business. Convoquez les députés.
Call in the members.
The question is the following one.
Seconded by Ms. Jansen. Moved that Bill C-208, an act to amend the Income Tax Act, transfer of small business or family farm or fishing corporation, be now read a third time and do pass.
The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote.
We will start with the sponsor of the item.
Mr. Maguire.
Mr. Maguire. We'll now proceed to the members participating in person. Although